So this is a story about when I was giving birth to my daughter, how the hospital attempted to kidnap my daughter and unalive me in order to do that. But they did get to do that because, as you can see, I'm still here. And I'm telling this story right now for two reasons. One, because the story is crazy as fuck. Okay? And second of all, I feel like these stories need to be told. I have told many people this story, but most folks don't seem like they believe it, right? They just be like, oh, okay. And it's really patronizing, honestly. It's disgusting, to be honest, when you tell people your story and they don't really understand the magnitude of what's going on because they have that mentality of, air quote, my government wouldn't do that, or a hospital wouldn't do that, or, something of that nature. And it's like, if you don't have the video evidence, people don't really be believing you and what you're saying, which is crazy to me. But here we go. First of all, I was in Mississippi. I didn't plan to give birth here. I didn't plan to give birth here because of a recurring dream that I was having, but I'll talk about that later or another time. So I wasn't planning on giving birth in a hospital at all for reasons, you know. And so I had this whole plan of giving birth in a birthing center down in North Miami Beach. But as things turned out, I had to go back home at 39 weeks pregnant because of an emergency. And I didn't have insurance, right? Because I'm 39 weeks pregnant and I had to move states on an emergency. And so I got an organization that was helping me and it was telling me like everything to do. Now, that wasn't the best thing to do. I didn't know that then, but I do know that now. Mississippi doesn't have birthing centers. And I don't even know what the home birth process is in Mississippi or nothing like that. But on the evening that I went into labor, my daughter's father was with me. Now, my daughter's father and I were not on the best terms. In fact, I didn't even want him there. However, I didn't have anyone else. So, I I needed him there, right? I needed him there to be an advocate for me, to be a witness for me, because I just don't trust hospitals based on the fact that my mom worked in a hospital. So, on the evening I went into labor, we went into the hospital and did exactly what the person who advised me to do. I went in through the women's emergency, and they took me in and, triage. It was COVID time, so they did a COVID test. My daughter's father was with me the whole time. They're running all the tests. They're doing the little intake interview, and I'm definitely in labor at this time. They told me that I was 5 centimeters dilated, and of course, I'm having contractions and everything like that. Then they take me up to the 3rd floor, where they tell my daughter's father to go into the waiting area. And while he's in the waiting area, I'm like, why is he going in the waiting area? I told them already that he could be with me, that I didn't care what they said or asked me in front of him. And then they just say, well, he's just going to wait. We're going to bring him later. Okay. That's what they tell me. And he's like, what? Why I got to go wait? Why I can't go in the room with you? I was confused. He was confused, because never has this ever happened to me in all the 1-2 births that I done before that. And this was my 3rd birth, that anybody told the person that I was with to wait in the waiting room. So they're pushing me in a wheelchair. They push me into the room. And so I'm there. I'm in labor. I'm in pain. I don't have my labor partner, my partner who's there to help me with my labor pain and everything like that. So I'm asking for him. I'm like, where is my daughter's father? I keep asking for him. And the nurse sees me. She sees I'm in pain, and she already has me connected to IVs and everything. And so she's like, well, I can give you something to help you relax. since your daughter's father is not here to help you with those things. And she was like, and I could give you something to help you relax. It's not going to take your pain away, but it's definitely going to help you relax, so it's just not as intense. So I said, okay, I'll take it. I can't remember the name of the medication or whatever it is she gave me. So she put it in through my IV, and I immediately began to feel kind of drowsy, you know. So then, I'm constantly asking. She going in and out of the room at different intervals, and I'm asking for my daughter's father. So then she comes in. I don't know which time this was that she came in, but she came in and she told me, I don't have good news. And I'm like, okay. And she says, you tested for COVID, so your daughter's father is not going to be able to be with you. In fact, nobody is going to be with you in the birthing room. We're going to take your baby to the nursery, and we're going to test your baby every 12 hours for COVID, and we're going to transport you to the COVID unit. I was like, what? No way. Where's my daughter's father? I said, because he's been with me this entire pregnancy. We live together. We sleep together. We breathe each other's air. Okay. If I got COVID, he got COVID. So surely he can be allowed into the space if that's the case. If I have COVID, because he got it too. Okay. He got it. I promise you he got it. So anyway, I kept asking for him, and she's like, well, we're going to call the doctor, and we're going to talk to the doctor, and if the doctor says it's okay for him to be in the room, then he'll be in the room. So she goes in the room, in and out of the room a number of times. She doesn't come back with my daughter's father. She doesn't come back with the doctor. Not any of these times. And so she's like, well, I don't know if your daughter's father is going to be able to be with you because, you got this COVID and da-da-da-da. I said, listen, ma'am. I said, I didn't do this without my daughter's father. So I'm not doing this without my daughter's father. I said, so go get him, So I'm just like drifting in and out of consciousness with whatever she gave me in my IV. And she's going in and out of the room, and nobody's coming in with her. And she's just telling me they're on their way. So she comes through the room again. I had fallen asleep, but as soon as I hear the door click, I'm up, I'm awake. And it's my daughter's father, and I'm so excited to see him. And not only is it my daughter's father, it's 2 other nurses that she now has with her, and they literally flank my bed, 1 in the front and 2 on the side. And they start telling me and my daughter's father exactly what they told me before, that I tested positive for COVID, that nobody can be in the room with me. They're going to take my daughter, and then they're going to transport me to the COVID unit. And I was like, no, you can't do that. Like, that is not what's best for me and my child. I was advocating for myself the best that I could, being under these drugs and things like that, which was just not even a good idea. I just didn't think about it, right? I was just in labor, and the person that I had there to advocate for me, they had sent into the waiting area, which, thinking back, I feel like it was all intentional. So they started telling me it's the hospital policy, and I'm like, it is not best to separate a mother from her newborn. I'm like, that's not what's best for me. That's not what's best for my child. And they kept saying, well, we know that it's strict and da-da-da-da-da, but it's hospital policy. I said, I didn't ask you hospital policy. I asked you what is best for me and my child. And they're like, ma'am, we're doing our best, and this is hospital policy, and yada, yada, yada. And I didn't want to hear it. My daughter's father didn't want to hear it either. He took his phone, he went to the corner, he found another hospital. He asked me, where was this hospital at? So he called the hospital, and he was talking to the person on the phone, and I was listening to him talk to the person on the phone. And as he was talking to them, he wasn't really asking the right question. So he hung up with them, and he's like, we're about to go. And I was like, wait, call them back. So he calls them back, and he gives the phone to me. And I talked to them, and I said, I'm at this hospital. They just told me that I tested positive for COVID. I said, if I come to that hospital and I test positive for COVID, I said, am I going to be separated from my baby? And they told me, no, your baby is going to stay in the room with you. And with that, I asked the nurse to get my papers to sign me out and that we were leaving. So she started unhooking me from the IV and everything. And just a side note on the COVID situation. They said I tested positive for COVID. They only tested me one time. Okay, and we already know that COVID has false negatives all the time. And in that one test, I didn't have any symptoms of COVID. I didn't have any coughing, any cold, any fever, nothing. Nothing. I had no symptoms related to COVID or flu or cold or pneumonia or anything that could be COVID adjacent. I had no symptoms of anything. I was fine. I was fine. I was fine. Okay. And so she goes get my paper and she unhooks me from the IV. She goes get the paper. I sign myself out. And then, I'm in labor. I've been in labor. My daughter's father asked them for a wheelchair. They said no. The nurse said that since I signed myself out, I had to walk out. Now, I don't know if that's hospital policy, but that's what she told me. So I talked to my daughter's father. I said, I'm in labor right now. I said, and my contractions aren't very far apart. I said, so we're going to get out of here. I said, but we're going to have to go slow. I said, and you're going to have to know exactly where you're going. I don't have time to walk the wrong way for 5 minutes just to have to walk back to go the right way. I said, so please, please, please take me the right way the first time. So he managed to get me down. And I just sat there until he got the car. He got the car, and when he got the car, I told him, I know I'm in labor. I know you want to hurry to the next hospital, but you got to go slow, baby, because Jackson, Mississippi got so many goddamn potholes, okay? So I told him to go slow because I don't want to be hitting all them bumps and stuff. So he drives me to the next hospital. They do the whole intake process. They get me up straight to the labor and delivery room. No triage this time. And so they immediately test me for COVID. All these nurses, they got on these hazmat looking suits, right? So they test me for COVID. And they're like, the test is negative. But we're going to test you again. The other hospital didn't do that. They said, we're going to test you again just to be sure. This other test is a longer test. You know what I mean? It's going to get down up in there and really, really let us know if there's any signs or anything of COVID, right? So this other test, she lets me know it's going to take a little bit longer, and they understood I'm in labor, just, do your thing. So I'm like, okay. So they run another test. This test does take longer. It takes over an hour for this next test to come back. And when the next test came back, y'all, it was negative. I tested negative twice for COVID, right? And from there, everything went smoothly. And nobody can tell me that they wasn't trying to take my baby and kill me. I actually told the other nurse at the hospital that I don't have any symptoms of COVID. I said, if y'all transport me to the COVID unit, I'm going to die. I told her that. I said, I'm going to die because then I'm going to actually have COVID. Because right now you saying I have it, but I don't have no symptoms, right? So I just really feel like, and Mississippi is one of those no right state, right? And with me and my daughter's father not being married, that means that if something did happen to me in that hospital while my daughter was there, and they're not letting him, get to me, there would have been no way to establish paternity for him in those moments. And in Mississippi, if you have not established paternity as a father who is not married to the mother, then you have no rights. And I have seen stories similar to this where it has taken the father several years to gain custody of their child because something happened to the mother in the hospital. And it is my firm belief that those people tried to unalive me in this manner of saying that I had COVID, transporting me to the COVID unit, and separating me from my newborn. They don't even do that to animals. They don't even do that to animals. But they were trying to do that to me. I was not going to let it happen. And I was just so thankful that my daughter's father was there, even though we weren't on good terms. And that entire situation has changed our entire relationship dynamic. And like when he told his story to his friends, like they were in shock. They believed him. They couldn't believe, like, damn, man, you hear about this stuff on the internet and things like that, but you never think it would happen to someone you know. There was no legal pursuit around it because I couldn't do it. I just had a baby, and my daughter's father, as you can see, we weren't even on good terms, and he was the only person that could advocate for me. And he lived all the way in Miami. And I was just so grateful he was there. And I tell him that often, and I told him that a lot, and I told him thank you, for being there. I don't think, oh, you were supposed to be there, and I don't take that for granted, And he said to me, you wouldn't have had anybody else there to be with you if I wasn't there. I said, yeah, I probably would have, but they would not have advocated for me in the way that you did. They wouldn't have been ready to kick down doors. I don't come from that type of family. I am that person in my family, kicking down doors to advocate for people, but I don't have those people in my family. So I feel like they literally would have just passively listened to those doctors. Or another person in my family that was a kick down the door person is my mom. So that's where I get it from. But those people don't generally exist in my family. My family is a very passive family. They really into respectability, politics, and all that type of stuff, Be respectful, be respectable, those type of things. And me, I'm not that person. I'm not that person at all. I will kick down doors to advocate for the people I love. And I was glad to see that my daughter's father is also that person, and our relationship makes sense. And it never did not make sense, Things just don't always go the way that you plan in relationship, and that's that. But my family is very passive. And I was grateful for my daughter's father. I was grateful that despite how I felt about how things were going, I still allowed him to be there with me, because I don't know where I would be right now. In the ground. I don't know where my children would be right now if it wasn't for him advocating for me the way that he did. And these stories need to be told, because Black women in hospitals getting treated horribly, okay? And there's nobody there to advocate for them. And the whole thing that I went through before even getting to this point of giving birth to my daughter is a whole other story to tell that just adds layers to this whole drama and this whole trauma. But nobody can tell me no people wasn't trying to take my baby. Nobody can tell me no people wasn't trying to kill me. My daughter's father and I, we sit together and we talk about how these people thought we were transient. Having no insurance, coming from Miami, Florida identification, you know what I'm saying? 39 weeks pregnant. They thought we were transient. They thought we were ripe for the picking. Okay? And that's sad. That's unfortunate, because what about the people who really are transient? What about the people who are really vulnerable? And I was in a vulnerable situation. I don't consider myself a vulnerable person though. And I was just grateful that he was there to help me.